This is the Sports Hounds Real Sports Bark Podcast, bringing you current events, news, NFL, NBA, MLB, soccer, UFC, boxing, and more. Make sure to hit us up on the website, thesportshound.com. And now, here's your host, Tigsta.
What is happening, everybody? Is yours truly, Tigsta. Welcome to another episode of the Sports Hounds Real Sports Bark Podcast. Episode 21. Yeah, we got a lot of things to discuss. On this episode, we'll be handling the 2019 NFL free agency period, where free agents are known to go to, connected to, and where they sign. Also, we had last night the Errol, Spence Jr. and Mikey Garcia fight. Good fight, but for Errol Spence, you know what I mean? Total domination. But let's go ahead and let's talk about this NBA season. We're coming down to the wire, you guys. There's in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference, about the middle of the pack, we have about 3 or 4 teams that's in contention as far as jockeying for position of this playoff run that they're all about to make. As far as the Eastern Conference goes, we have a good tight battle between Philadelphia, Indiana, and Boston for those 3, 4, and 5 spots, respectively, in the Eastern Conference. You have the Philadelphia 76ers, who sit at 44-25 right now. They're 8 games out of first place from Milwaukee. You do have Milwaukee as the 1 seed so far, Toronto as the 2. Both of them have clinched. That could be a battle in its own, too, because we still have some games left, and Toronto's behind Milwaukee by 3 games. So, yeah, it's going to be a run to the finish to make these playoff spots, but it's getting there. We're getting closer week after week, so be ready for that one. But like I was mentioning, Philadelphia currently holds the 3rd spot right now, 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference, and with Indiana, the Pacers are not far behind these dudes, man. They're only 8.5 out of first, so they're like a half game behind Philly, sitting at 44-26. And then you have Boston at the 5 seed right now, and they're 9.5 games out of first place, giving them a game behind the Pacers and a game and a half behind Philly, which Boston sits at 43-27. So yeah, everything is coming down to the final little home stretch of this season. We only have around about 11 games left in the season, so that Eastern Conference is a tight finish. I see it coming up. The West is not too far behind them, because just like with the Western Conference, the Golden State Warriors are currently in the 1 seed, clinching the playoffs already, and they're sitting at 47-21. But you have Denver right on their heels, and they're sitting there 1 game behind them. 1 game at 46-22. So that's going to come down to the wire. Then you also have a battle, man, and this is a tight battle. You have a tight battle between, the closest is going to be Houston, Portland, Oklahoma City, and San Antonio. You have Houston, who's 4.5 games out of first, sitting at the 3rd seed, and they're 43-26. Then you have the Blazers sitting at the 4 seed at 42-27 at 5.5 games out of first place. And OKC sitting at the 5th seed with 42-28 record with 6 games out of first. The Spurs is right on their heels. Spurs are 7 games out of first place. They're sitting at the 6th seed in the West at 41-29 is their record. Right on their heels is Utah at the 7th seed. They're a half game behind San Antonio and 7.5 out of first place, sitting at 40-29. Then you even got let's go down to the 8th seed. It's the Clippers. The Clippers is 8 games out of first. They're a half game behind the 7th seed of Utah. They're a game and a half behind San Antonio at the 6th seed. You know, they're 2.5 games behind Portland. It goes on and on. So it's gonna be a good close finish. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't see the Kings who's sitting out at the 9 spot. They're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna make it at all. Being 14 games out, that's also 6 games behind the Clippers, who's at 8. Figure with 12, 11 games left. Good luck. That's gonna be a hard one unless you can get one of those teams above you just go on a losing streak and you get hot. So I mean, I've seen crazier happen, but crazy is not like an everyday thing in the NBA. It's pretty much you know what teams is going to be there. You know what teams are in contention. So, yeah, man, the playoffs are coming upon us. This should be very, very interesting to say the least with both conferences, Western and Eastern. As far as the playoffs will be interesting, but this last little bit, 10-game run, 10, 11, 12-game run that you have left in you, if you can get hot right now, that'll be a good momentum going into the playoffs this year. So the matchups are real, I think, going to be even. The Warriors, they're looking human. Like I said, with about 13 games left, they're still below 50 wins. So we'll see what happens. I know they'll get 50 wins because that's only 3 wins away, but these other teams are not that far either, with Denver needing 4 wins. Houston needs 7. Portland needs 8. Oklahoma City needs 8, 9 for San Antonio, and 10 for Utah. And like I said, there's 10 for the Clippers as well. But like I said, these last little few games, it all depends on what team gets hot, what team goes cold. And these last 10 games is going to say a whole lot because it's going to change up the seeding as far as it can dictate who has home court advantage. It'll also dictate matchups. This is a game of matchups. Some teams aren't suited to beat other teams like they are others, so matchups is going to play a key in this as well. So, like I said, the 2019 NBA playoffs will be a very interesting one. I wouldn't be surprised if Golden State does not repeat. And I know Cleveland ain't going to be there for the 5th straight year either. So, you know what I mean? It is what it is with LeBron with the Lakers, but Lakers ain't mentioned in the playoffs because you might as well say they're out of it. They're not going to make it, which they should have. I know you hope for the best, but you got to expect the worst, So with that, maybe in free agency, you can go ahead and add that 1-2 star that you're trying to get. You will have competition for those players because the Knicks will be in the same boat. I think even Dallas might look interesting with one more slot open. Another team I think that is missing one elite star like in the front court, whether it's a small forward or a power forward, the Blazers. If you get the Blazers a legitimate player, like a player that's equivalent to CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard, there will be a contender for the championship. Right now, I think they're just that one piece away. To me, their bench is one of the strongest with the additions of Hood and also the addition of Cantor. Those were very, very good pickups. But I think Portland needs that one, either that power forward or that small forward, a star player, to go with CJ and Dame. So, yeah, that's one team to look forward to. The Warriors, after this season, who knows what's going to happen. Who's going to stay, who's going to go. You have free agents in Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant. We can see what happens. Even DeMarcus Cousins, he's a free agent as well. So they can test the waters. They can leave if they choose to. Depends on what the Warriors, if they want to keep them and how much they're willing to keep them for. So it's up in the air. But you do have franchises out there. You have Kawhi Leonard that's going to be a free agent. Where does he go? If he chooses to leave Toronto, does he go to the Lakers? Does he go to the Clippers? Where? Kyrie Irving is another name. Can he go stay with Boston, or does he feel like it's time to move on? I heard the Knicks can be a possibility. He also did not deny the fact that it's a possibility of him and LeBron teaming up again in Los Angeles. That could be intriguing to him. KD is another one that can leave and either go. I heard of the Knicks as a possibility. Lakers is a possibility. It all depends on what this man feels is the next stage of his career, his life. So he can leave. He has the right to do so. Where does he go? Who knows? We'll see. Stay tuned. But right now, we're on this run to the playoffs.
You want sports? We got it right here. This is the Sports Hounds Real Sports Bark Podcast.
Right now, we've been having free agency jump off in the NFL. The 2019 edition. Some big names have moved on. Other big names have been traded. Yes, there's been big trades like jaw-dropping. You know what I mean? So, with the trades, you have one jumping off when you had. Okay, here's the rundown. Antonio Brown asked the Pittsburgh Steelers to be traded. They're granting his wish. So now the team that was supposed to get him, which was the Buffalo Bills, but by what is said to have happened was Antonio did not want to go to Buffalo. So that deal was nixed. Once that deal was nixed, the Raiders jumped into the fold. The Pittsburgh Steelers reached out to him. I guess one of the picks that was discussed that Pittsburgh wanted from the Raiders was one of their first. Mike Mayock, the GM of the Raiders, told him that could not be something that we can entertain. At the same time, the second round was also a pick that was not going to be entertained. So anything else after that is up for discussion. With that being said, I think Pittsburgh went ahead and let it cool down. From what Mike Mayock said that Friday night, they went to bed thinking that the deal was dead, and they thought it was just time to just forget about it and just focus on other free agent targets and also the draft. But Pittsburgh reached back out to the Raiders, discussed a trade that worked out in the favor. Also, they know that they would have to give Antonio Brown new money because there was no more guaranteed money left on the contract that he was currently under with the Steelers. So they being the Pittsburgh Steelers, allowed Antonio Brown and his agent to go ahead and reach out to the Raiders and discuss financial payment as far as how they're going to get a new contract, what's the amounts, the guarantees, and so forth. Once that was reached, the agreement of the trade, and get this, here's the steal. Raiders stole AB from Pittsburgh. They gave them a 3rd and a 5th round pick for Antonio Brown. You heard that right. They gave up a 3rd and a 5th for Antonio Brown and gave him a new deal. He is now an Oakland Raider, 3-year contract. No longer with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Terrible Towels. He's welcome now to the Black Hole. So now Gruden and Mayock has a plan. It looks like now they have their number 1 receiver. Even after getting rid of Amari Cooper, they got a 1st round pick for him. So now they're sitting in this draft with 3 picks in the 1st round, Antonio Brown, and also the 3rd pick of the 2nd round, which sits at 35. So they have 4 picks in the first 35 picks is the Raiders. So they're the team to look at, to watch. They can move up, they can move down. Certain selections can change the path of how the draft ends up turning out. Very interesting stuff. That's Antonio Brown. The other big trade to discuss is the trade of Odell Beckham Jr. That's right. The Giants traded Odell Beckham Jr. to Cleveland. Yes, to the Cleveland Browns. Man, I tell you, to add Odell Beckham with Landry and you got Chubb at running back, Cleveland is going all in, man. I think their little blueprint as far as trading high picks for multiple picks and just keep stashing picks to help you in the process of rebuilding. But the thing is, you have to hit on your picks, and so far, Cleveland Browns have hit on all their picks. Running back, defensive ends, quarterback. They went in and they're doing a damn good job. I guessed it last year in one of the episodes of Real Sports Bark. I mentioned before the season that Cleveland will not be a bottom dweller of their division any longer. They've made the correct moves. They made the right moves. They're in perfect situation in a division where Pittsburgh is weakened. Cincinnati is weakened. And we'll get to why Baltimore's weakened because I'm getting ready to get into that too because they're part of this free agency as well, and also the trades going on. Now, Cleveland's in prime is a prime example of staying true to the process. The process, they knew they weren't great. They knew they were the best team. They knew they had to get rid of big contracts. They had to get rid of some stars. They traded down in the draft a couple of times, get more picks, and this is where we're at now. We're at a team that they possibly could have made the playoffs this year. If you remember, some of their losses were by missed field goals to win the game, and also they have that tie against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they finished the season minus those should have wins and minus the tie. They could have made the playoffs because they had 7 wins with that happening. So there's a possibility they could have finished a 10 or 11 win team. That's saying a lot for a team that's just always been at the bottom all this time, but they're doing the right thing. So yeah. Now, like I said, with Baltimore, them being weak, I give it a fair exchange. They're not really weak. They lost some players, but they brought in some players. They've gotten better too. But I'm just looking at the all-around aspect of Cleveland. I think Cleveland and Baltimore owns this division now. It's going to be a battle between them two. Baltimore, okay, here's the thing with Baltimore. Baltimore has brought in Mark Ingram, the running back of the Saints. So now that's their running back. They traded Flacco to Denver for a late pick. They got that out the way. So we know who their quarterback is. We know who also on defense, the safety. The old safety from Seattle. He also, Earl Thomas, he also signed with the Baltimore Ravens, shoring up that secondary, especially after Weddle leaving leaving them going to, if I remember, he went to the Rams. Eric Weddle went to the Rams in free agency, so he's the new safety there. The safety from the Rams, LaMarcus Joyner, he left and he's with the Raiders now. Le'Veon Bell has signed as a free agent with the New York Jets, which, you know what I mean? He said he always wanted to be a Jet. Now he's a Jet. I think the Niners were trying to get in on him too. No, the Niners were trying to get in on Odell Beckham, but that did not happen because, from what I hear, the Giants wanted the Niners' number 2 overall pick in the first round of this year's draft. Niners said no, can't do. So they went on and dealt with Cleveland. Cleveland gave them a first and a third and a player, the safety that they had last year, Peppers. He's going to the Giants in that deal for Odell Beckham. You also had Nick Foles, who has left Philadelphia and has signed on with being the new quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So he's traded places. Teddy Bridgewater was to go meet with the Miami Dolphins about their starting position at quarterback, but he changed his mind and decided to return back to the Saints to back up Breeze. Knowing Breeze might have 1 or 2 years left, if that happens, then Bridgewater would be in line to go ahead and take over the New Orleans Saints as the new starting quarterback. You also had offensive tackle Trent Brown, formerly of the New England Patriots. He has signed a lucrative deal with the Oakland Raiders, being the highest paid offensive lineman in NFL history. You heard that. NFL history. But this guy is only 25 years old, 6'8", 380 pounds. He does not move like 380 pounds. He's to be as big as he is, he has some quickness. So as an offensive line, you like that because not only is he's a big mountain of a man for a defensive end to try to get around to get to now Derek Carr, which he was protecting Brady on their Super Bowl run and win in the Super Bowl. A lot of people say that he's not worth that money because the reason why he looks good in New England is because of the fast release that Brady has. Well, looking at what the Raiders did, not only did they get a big left tackle and probably sending Colton Miller, their last year's first round pick, offensive tackle out of UCLA. They're probably moving him to right tackle, and you're going to put Trent Brown at your left. So now you got 2 6'8" dudes on your bookends, 300 plus. So that's going to be interesting too with the Raiders. Also, we had Trey Flowers leaving, the defensive end leaving New England, going to the Detroit Lions. That makes sense too because the head coach of the Lions was formerly the defensive coordinator of the New England Patriots. So there's some familiarity in those two player and coach right there as well. As I mentioned, Earl Thomas going to Baltimore. Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, is now a Kansas City Chief. That's right. He goes to Kansas City because Kansas City also released Eric Berry, the former starting safety for them. So that's another new wrinkle that Kansas City added to their defense. A very good cover the whole field type safety in the Honey Badger. And then you also had the receiver from San Diego, Tyrell Williams, undrafted rookie, or he's not a rookie any longer. He's been in the league about 4 or 5 years now, out of Eastern Oregon, undrafted. 6'4" wide receiver, fast, stretches the field. That's what Phillip Rivers used him as with the Chargers in LA. He is now an Oakland Raider, so now you are pairing Tyrell Williams with Antonio Brown. That is your 1-2 receivers in Oakland. With that being said, Oakland also releases Jordy Nelson, making him a free agent. Some say that Jordy might go ahead and return back to Green Bay, but I think he'll be real serviceable to. I want to see him with a contending team, just to get ready to finish off his career, but at least finish it off on a high note. Real good dude and solid receiver, even in his latter years of his career. So man, there's so much stuff going. Let's see what else could happen. We also had who was it? Chicago Bears signed Cordell Patterson from the Patriots and formerly of the Raiders. Played receiver, kickoff return, and they use him as a running back in New England in some sets. So he's a multi-purpose Swiss Army knife type of offensive threat. Tall, I think 6'4", with good speed. So him going to Chicago should help Trubisky out a lot. Trubisky needs another weapon. Their former first-round draft pick Kevin White is gone.
You want sports? We got it right here. This is the Sports Hounds Real Sports Bark Podcast.
They had the Arizona Cardinals. So they added Kevin White, who's been injury-prone throughout his career. Remember him coming in with Amari Cooper and them in that draft. But, he's no longer a Chicago Bear. He has moved on with the Arizona Cardinals. And, that's free agency in a nutshell. It's been crazy, but it's been interesting, man. So it's still the period is still going on with free agency. You still have some players that could be released from certain teams. Like yesterday, the Raiders released Donald Penn, which everybody's seen that coming. The writing was on the wall. The Raiders are trying to get younger. They added a couple of offensive linemen as already in free agency. So with Donald Penn getting older, hit with injuries last year, it was, a mutual agreement for both of them to go their own ways. But I wish the best of luck to Donald Penn. Very good dude, solid offensive lineman who's been around for years, from Tampa Bay to Oakland to now wherever his career leads him to. He feels he still has some gas in the tank. So, man, keep doing that thing until that gas is gone, because once it's gone, that's it. So do you, man. And, we look forward to see what team you pop up with. Now on to last night's fight of Errol Spence Jr. and Mikey Garcia. Errol Spence, he beat this dude up, man, for 12 rounds. You could tell that Mikey Garcia was outmatched, and I think that for him to jump up two weight classes to face Errol Spence on his home turf, go back to where your weight class is normally, because this is not for you. You notice the different power, and was almost like watching the fight when Mikey Garcia did get some shots off to Errol Spence. It didn't faze him. He was never hurt. So you could tell the power difference. You could tell that when Errol Spence hit Mikey Garcia, though, that Mikey Garcia felt that. I give him credit, though. Mikey Garcia has heart. He kept fighting. His corner even asked him, I think around the 10th round, if he still wanted to go or if they want to stop the fight. If you don't show anything, he said, give me one more. So he goes out there and he still fights. So he's got heart. Don't get me wrong, but he was outmatched in a division that he should not even have just jumped right into. If you're going to move up in weight class, do a gradual move up. Go up into the next class, and then fight a few fights, just so you can get used to the different power and different style of fighting. As far as when the guy is bigger than you, he's gonna bully you down, he's gonna walk you down, and that's what Errol Spence did to Mikey Garcia for 12 rounds. He walked this dude down and picked his shots, and then he'll tee off on him and then step back. He had the reach, he had the strength, he had the skill. So yeah, I think Mikey Garcia needs to go back down into his original weight class. If he does ever want to move up, do it gradually. Don't just do it in one whop, because you're not used to that level of fighting against that power and so forth. Especially not only just that, against the cream of the crop of the division. So yeah. So the welterweight division is not for you. Drop back down and work your way up that way. After the fight, it was a unanimous decision for Errol Spence over Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia, first loss of his career. Errol Spence has called out Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao said he would love to fight him also, and they're talking about doing it again in the stadium last night. Dallas. It ain't Dallas Stadium, but yeah, they want to fight. That's where they fought at last night, and Errol Spence is from that area, so that's his home turf. So he wants to fight for the title on his home turf and defend his title, that is, against Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao said, let's do it. We'll see what happens. That should be a very, very, very good fight. They possibly can get that fight towards the end of the year if they can work it out fast and not have any kinks in the discussion and negotiating. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that one, man. That's going to be a good one. But last night's fight was just a showcase of Errol Spence Jr.'s just expertise with his hands. So, yep, that's what happened last night. Man, it was a good day. Good fight. Man, free agency is picking up. The NBA basketball season is winding down. Hockey is winding down. They're getting to their playoff. You got March Madness. Today is Selection Sunday for the teams going into the tournament for March Madness. Oregon won the Pac-12 last night. You have other games going on for conference championships. And man, we'll see who's the last team standing, who's going to enter this bracket. And then what I'll do is, once the bracket is set, I'll go ahead and come to the sportshound.com and I'll set it up so we can all enter a bracket and see who gets the best picks, the right picks against the wrong picks. We do it for the fun of it. The one with the best one we'll give you out a shirt. The Real Sports Bark Podcast. You feel me? So I'd like to say thank you for listening. This is Tixter. You're listening to the Sports Hounds Real Sports Bark Podcast. This has been episode 21, and I'm out.
Thanks for checking out the Sports Hounds Real Sports Bark Podcast. For more exclusive content, follow us on all social media. Twitter, SportsHound 24/7. Instagram, SportsHound Media. Facebook, SportsHound Media. And on the website at thesportshound.com. And tell your damn friends about the hottest sports podcast on the web.